the basic acute angle, which is sometimes known as the reference angle, associated acute angle, or the general angle. Right? But most of the schools out there use basic angle or acute angle. Okay, so what is this basic acute angle thing all about? Okay, it is very, very important for you to fully understand how and what how does an acute angle work, okay, and what is it all about, okay, in order to do well in this topic of trigonometry. So let us get started by talking about the different quadrants. Now, this is our familiar XY axis that we see all the time. Okay, now because in trigo we measure angle in anti-clockwise fashion. Alright, we measure angle this way, okay, as opposed to clockwise, so it's anti-clockwise direction. Alright, we call this quadrant the first quadrant, the second quadrant, the third quadrant, and the fourth quadrant, and so on. Okay, so the entire plane is divided into 4 equal quarter, which we call quadrants. Okay, now the next thing that we have to know is, of course, since we measure in anti-clockwise direction, we know that, well, this point here will be 0 degrees because there's no angle at all. And of course, this point here, when you measure from here to here, this is a 90 degrees, and of course this vertical axis will be a 90 degrees, and of course here you go, another 90 degrees, and of course this will be our 180 degrees. So we move on, go on further into 270 degrees, and we'll move back to our 360 degrees. Now this is when you start to realize that, hey, 360 degrees is the same as 0 degrees. Well, yes, they are the same, because they are both represented by this line, the positive x-axis. Let's talk about the angle 400 degrees. Now, then you may ask, hey, well, I never heard of a 400 degrees before. Well, the fact is, yes, what we have learned previously is that, well, the biggest angle that one can ever draw is a 360 degrees angle, which is a full circle, isn't it? So now, when we are talking about theoretical trigo, okay, well, we can measure angles more than 360 degrees, and in fact we can even have negative angles, of which we'll talk about later. Okay, so now let's just take for a moment to examine this 400 degrees. So 400 degrees, just where exactly is that? Well, we know that we have to start from the positive x-axis, so we move 90 degrees here, and then we move 180 degrees here, so this is only up to 270 degrees. So we move up here, we know we're back to square one, and this is 360 degrees. So we have to move further. Okay, so 400 degrees is actually this angle here. Alright, so 400 degrees is actually, 40 degrees more than our 360 degrees. So we start to realize that, this 400 degrees, by going more than one round, is actually the same as this acute angle 40 degrees. Okay, so we know that this angle 40 degrees is the same as 400 degrees. Now let us take a look at 500 degrees, shall we? Okay, just where exactly is 500 degrees? So we know that, okay, likewise, like previously what we have done, we'll go, okay, great, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, we move one full round back to 360 degrees. So we know that, well, 500 degrees is still quite some distance away, so we move plus another 90 degrees and we'll get 450 degrees, isn't it? Okay, so this axis here is the same as 450 degrees. So we know that, hey, we're approaching 500 degrees. So we know that 500 degrees will be somewhere here. Okay, so we'll be represented by this line here. So we know that 500 degrees is actually going one full round and then stopping in the second quadrant. Alright, now we also know that this angle here is 50 degrees, and that will make this angle here 40 degrees. So we say that 500 degrees is actually represented by 40 degrees in the second quadrant. Alright? The same way, previously we mentioned, the same way that 400 degrees can be represented by 40 degrees in the first quadrant. So now we start to realize that by dividing this plane into 4 different quadrants, we can simply use an acute angle to represent a very, very big angle. Alright, so angles like 400 degrees, 500 degrees. Alright, 500 degrees is actually the 40 degrees in the second quadrant. Okay, so even if now we are faced with 1000 degrees, well, we shouldn't have a problem at all, because we know that we can reduce that 1000 degrees into an acute angle.